I am such an awesome guy. I make so many videos.
Hello there, Price of Reason here with a special report. Ever since Kevin Feige's announcement of Daredevil Born Again, a soft reboot sequel series to Netflix's beloved Daredevil series that ran between 2015 to 2018, I haven't had much hope that it would be any good. And one of the main reasons for this is Marvel president Kevin Feige himself, who pretty much had nothing to do with the success of the original Netflix show at all, as it was run by a completely different creative team and exclusive to Netflix. During Daredevil's run on Netflix, the original show was extremely popular with both casual viewers and comic book fans, and today is widely considered one of the best on-screen comic book adaptations ever. In fact, the only reason Daredevil was ever cancelled at the height of its popularity was because of studio tensions between Netflix and Disney, who had announced the launch of their own Disney Plus streaming service to compete with Netflix, something that obviously didn't sit well with them. Initially, I assumed that Kevin Feige thought that he could produce shows much better than Daredevil when it came to Marvel streaming properties, but after a series of stinkers for Disney Plus and the MCU's ongoing diminishing returns, at some point, Daredevil became his only hope. This is why in 2022, Kevin Feige announced Daredevil Born Again, a soft reboot sequel series of sorts to the original Netflix show, which now streams on Disney Plus and, ironically, is the only good show that they have. At the time of the announcement, I had already expressed concerns about Kevin Feige's plans, as I knew that under his watch, Daredevil could never be as gritty or cool as it was without being under his creative thumb. Now, I know that in the past, Kevin Feige may have done a mostly good job with the MCU until Avengers Endgame, but that was when he was working with creatives like Jon Favreau, James Gunn, and even Joss Whedon. And also, to be fair, those were usually more family-friendly productions, whereas Daredevil had more of a gritty edge. Another issue, in my opinion, is also that in recent years, Kevin Feige himself has gone through somewhat of a transformation. If in the past he was a more hungry executive, looking to please fans, at this point of his career, after putting hundreds of millions of dollars in his bank account, he's not so hungry anymore, and he's essentially become more of a company man. And that company, unfortunately, is Disney, which seems to be very obsessed with different Hollywood trendy agendas these days, less than entertaining people. In regards to Daredevil Born Again, after seeing how both the characters of Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin and Charlie Cox's Daredevil were already diminished and degraded on shows like Kate Bishop featuring Hawkeye and She-Hulk, it was pretty clear that nothing good was going to happen with Daredevil Born Again. It also didn't help that nobody from the original production was involved in the new series, which is odd since the original team did such a good job with the Netflix version. I mean, they already had a fourth season planned and ready to go when they were abruptly cancelled, and I think fans of the show just wanted to see that more than anything else. Another issue is that apparently aside from Cox and D'Onofrio, the only character from the original series that we expect to see in Daredevil Born Again is Vanessa Fisk, who has been recast with a seemingly more diverse actress for no apparent reason, even though original actress Ayelet Zurer actually wanted to return to her role. Anyhow, once the writer's strike started in June 2023, it was announced that production on Daredevil Born Again had halted completely, but now that the strike is done, there's some brand new developments coming out of the industry trades. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Kevin Feige apparently now wants to do a major creative overhaul. Let's look at what they say and try to analyze it as best we can. Daredevil hits reset button as Marvel overhauls its TV business. See, they're already making these type of excuses, even from the sub-headline. Launched during the pandemic with a playbook to shoot $150 million plus seasons with no pilots, the Disney unit is undergoing growing pains and seeing the logic of traditional TV culture. Come on, they could have made $150 million shows and made them well. Netflix does that all the time. I think that what you need is good writers, and you need to respect your customer base, and you don't need to lecture them all the time with politics. Basically, it's as if they had a royal flush in their hand in a poker game, and they ended up with a pair of twos. And if anybody's at fault for that, it's them. But let's get to the article. It didn't take long to see the problem after Marvel Studios' Daredevil Born Again paused production mid-June during the writer's strike. Fewer than half the series, 18 episodes, had been shot, but it was enough for Marvel executives, including Chief Kevin Feige, to review the footage and come away with a clear-eyed assessment. This show wasn't working. Yet he didn't need to spend hundreds of millions of dollars filming 9 episodes to learn that the show wasn't working. He could have asked anybody that watched the original one that heard what his plans were, and they would have told him that the show's not working. So in late September, Marvel quietly let go of writers Chris Ord and Matt Corman and also released the directors for the remainder of the season as part of a significant creative reboot of the series, The Hollywood Reporter has learned. They can't hide the fact that he's basically scrapping something that probably he spent $100 million on. That means it must be really bad. And also Disney knows they're in trouble. They know that this is probably the only wild card they have, that if maybe they do this series and it's any good, maybe a few people will watch it. That's their only chance. If they do this crappy thing that they've been doing with all the other shows with this, it's going to be a real mess for them. The studio is now on the hunt for new writers and directors for the project, which stars Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock, a blind lawyer turned superhero. I don't understand what it means that the studio is on a hunt to find these people. There were writers and directors and producers that did a world-class job that were involved in the first series. They were worthy of a phone call. Maybe you need to call them and ask them to come back. The Daredevil revamp is the latest in a series of growing pains for Marvel Television. Since debuting the Emmy-winning WandaVision in January 21, the studio, which dominated the film industry in the 2010s, has released more than 50 hours of TV programming after creating a small-screen division from the ground up during the pandemic. Oh, stop with all of these compliments. WandaVision was a piece of crap. That show started off interesting, and by the end of it, you could tell that it was a complete dud. Through it all, the company eschewed the traditional TV making model. It didn't commission pilots, but instead it shot entire $150 million plus seasons on TV on the fly. It didn't hire showrunners, but instead depended on film executives to run its series. And as Marvel does for its movies, it relied on post-production and reshoots to fix what wasn't working. Yeah, over-relies on post-production and reshoots, as we've seen with so many of Marvel's recent movies, which they can't seem to film anything properly. They keep reshooting it. All of the budgets inflate. They don't even report to the public, apparently, how much they're spending on these properties, which at the end just lose money. Even though they remain, along with the Star Wars titles, the most watched shows on Disney+. Again, most people are not happy with the Star Wars titles. That also seems to be a series of diminishing returns, along with the MCU series. Marvel series has recently faced a number of creative challenges and cries of diminishing returns from critics and audience metrics, causing a major shift at the studio to move to make TV shows the more traditional way. There is no traditional way. Look at One Piece for Netflix. Look at Stranger Things for Netflix. When you do a good show that's interesting and people like it, you can create that kind of phenomena that everybody wants to see. This isn't some rocket science here that they needed to adapt. It's as if they're trying to tell you that Kevin Feige was so fancy with his movies that he didn't fully realize the type of business model he needed for TV. No, that's not true at all. All he needed to do was to take the billions of dollars of budgets that he was given and make shows on the level of these type of One Piece and Stranger Things, but he just wasn't able to do it. And the real reason is because everything is based on all these weird politics that Disney has. It's based on all of their agendas, and that's why they're losing their money. Had they just continued to entertain people like they used to know how to do, then none of this would be happening now. We're trying to marry the Marvel culture with the traditional television culture, says Brad Winderbaum, Marvel's head of streaming, television, and animation. It comes down to, how can we tell these stories in television and honor what's so great about the source material? How about you go by the source material? You look at the source material and you adapt that without all this other stuff that you just forcefully shove in there so that you could pretend to be diverse and inclusive. And again, to make this clear, it's not the diversity and inclusion that's ever the issue. It's the way Disney are doing it. Over the past few years, you barely see a show where there's a male character, let alone one of a certain background, that you see him actually doing anything positive. This isn't diversity done right. With Daredevil's new direction, Marvel hopes to right the ship on a project with sky-high expectations. The show is Marvel's first to feature a hero who already had a successful series on Netflix, running 3 seasons, but sources say that Corman and Ord crafted a legal procedural that did not resemble the Netflix version, known for its action and violence. Yes, it didn't resemble it. We knew this. The actors have been saying this from day one, that we can expect a very different show. I think that at this point, it's not so much that Kevin Feige is surprised. He just knows that this is going to be another stinker like all of his other stinkers. Maybe this is a wake-up call. Maybe he looked at it and he said, this has to be the best thing ever, and maybe I have to hire real writers for this, and I have to make something that's not complete crap. The thing is, I don't even know if he's capable of doing that at this point. Cox didn't even show up in costume until the 4th episode. Marvel, after greenlighting the concept, found itself needing to rethink the original intention of the show. Marvel plans to keep some scenes and episodes, though other serialized elements will be injected, with Corman and Ord becoming executive producers on the 2-season series. Basically, they probably have a safeguard in their contract that if Kevin Feige fires them, which he essentially just did, they will still be able to save face. They get money because they're still executive producers, and also it won't look like they were just thrown out, which they were. Daredevil is far from the first Marvel series to undergo drastic behind-the-scenes changes. Those who work with Marvel on the TV side have complained of a lack of central vision that has, according to sources, begun to afflict the studio's shows with creative differences in tension. TV is a writer-driven medium, says one insider familiar with the Marvel process. Oh, stop it already. This is just a bunch of nonsense. On the Oscar Isaac star Moon Knight, show creator and writer Jeremy Slater quit and director Mohammed Diab took the reins. Jessica Gao developed and wrote She-Hulk Attorney at Law, but was sidelined once director Kat Coiro came on board. Production was challenging with hitting cast and crew, and Gao was brought back to oversee post-production, a typical showrunner duty, but it's the rare Marvel head writer who has such oversight. I don't know what excuses they're trying to do with She-Hulk Attorney at Law. Jessica Gao wanted to point finger at fans, and that's how we got a show that attacks its own fans. And that's why nobody liked it. Especially the main demographic that probably would have enjoyed such a show. Even though the company does have a writer's first approach to TV, directors could feel shortchanged as well. The whole fix-it-in-post attitude makes it feel like a director doesn't matter sometimes. As its shows ramped up during the pandemic, Marvel stepped outside its usual staffing approach and brought in outside exec after years of internally promoting creatives who have been sufficiently trained in the Marvel method. This feels like Kevin Feige himself wrote this article. The change was felt more severely on Secret Invasion, the Samuel L. Jackson-led thriller that stands as Marvel's worst-reviewed series. Kyle Bradstreet, a writer and executive producer on USA Network Emmy winner Mr. Robot, had been working on the scripts for Secret Invasion for about a year when he was fired after Marvel decided on a different direction. Enter new writer Brian Tucker, who penned the crime thriller Broken City, Thomas Bajuka, who helmed the thriller Let 'Em Go, and Ali Salim, who worked on Hulu's 9/11 drama The Looming Tower, were on board as directors to help crack the story. This isn't a case that you need to crack open. You don't need a detective to come in to figure this out. You just need to find people that aren't activists, that know how to write, have some kind of track record, and just let them do their job. And apparently, this is really difficult over at Marvel because of the Marvel method. So far, so normal, at least by Marvel's creative development standards. Details are murky, but what happened next in the summer of 2022 debilitated the production as factions became entrenched and leaders vied for supremacy during Secret Invasion's post-production in London. It was weeks of people not getting along and it erupted, says an insider. Marvel declined to directly comment on the matter. I don't know all of this. All I know is that I tried watching that Secret Invasion show and it was terrible. I did a review on this channel and I was one of the first very early people to say how terrible this show is, and it was terrible. Let's go on. The company dispatched Jonathan Schwartz, a senior executive and member of Marvel's creative steering committee. They have a steering committee? This guy seems like he's steering the Titanic. Steering committee, known as the Parliament, to get Secret Invasion back on track when it was falling behind schedule and on the verge of losing some actors because of their other commitments. By early September, a good portion of the Invasion team had been replaced with new line producers, unit production managers, and assistant directors, and Bajuka, who was supposed to direct 3 episodes, left the show because of new scheduling conflicts. I'd like to speak to Mr. Bazooka and ask him what conflicts he had. The Marvel executive overseeing the show, Chris Gary, was reassigned and, according to sources, is expected to depart Marvel when his contract is up at the end of the year. All of this sounds like there's a mess over there. Nobody knows what's going on. There's, I guess, too much money, too many chefs, and too many politics. As it moves forward, Marvel is making concrete changes to how it makes TV. It now plans to hire showrunners. Hire showrunners! Wow, what a novelty. That's an invention that may actually win them a Nobel Prize. Gao's post-production work on She-Hulk helped Marvel see that it would be helpful for its shows to have a creative through line from start to finish. That's their example for something that worked? Gao? Gao and She-Hulk, one of the biggest flops of all time, that's the model they want to go by? This company is doomed. And I'm not even talking about the bigger picture with Disney itself. It's a term we've not only grown comfortable with, but also learned to embrace, says Winderbaum of showrunners and Marvel TV's intention to hire them. The studio also plans on having full-time TV execs rather than having executives straddle both television and film. We need executives that are dedicated to this medium, and they are going to focus on streaming, focus on television, says Winderbaum, because they are two different forms. This is all just excuses. It feels like Kevin Feige feeling the heat. He needed to explain why everything is falling apart, and he just said, okay, we need to change our business structure here. Once we do that, everything will be solved. This isn't the real issue here, in my opinion. It is also revamping its development process. Showrunners will write pilots and show Bibles. Wow, pilots and Bibles. What have they been doing over there? I think that they've been just sitting around there euphoric about the success of Endgame and about how they love all their politics, and they just figured anything is going to be fine. And now when they're starting to lose money, they're like, wait, we have to hire people that know how to do something. Maybe we'll hire a showrunner. Hey, let's hire a writer. Yeah, those are things that you should have done before. And just as Loki, which returned October 5th, marked Marvel's first season 2 of a series out of 9 TV shows to date, the studio plans on leaning into the idea of multi-season serialized TV, stepping away from the limited series format that has defined it. Marvel wants to create shows that run several seasons, where characters can take time to develop relationships with the audience rather than feeling as if they're just a setup for a big crossover event. I mean, I agree with this, but this isn't the main problem here. Some of its next shows, in fact, promise to be more personal stories. Echo, which premieres in January, is a grounded crime story with few visual effects, revolving around deaf Native American anti-hero Maya Lopez. You know, the less they talk about Echo, the better. Rumors are that show has been reshot a number of times, is a disaster, and they're dumping it all in one day. And I think they delayed it because they didn't want another failure during this calendar year. Wonder Man, a show that was paused because of the writers and actors strike, is meant to be a behind-the-scenes look at Hollywood and a character study of Simon Williams, a superhero who has a side gig as an actor and stunt person. Ugh, that sounds awful. Winderbaum says he wants people to watch shows because they love the characters. It should work, he says, beyond the fact that it ties into other projects, or if they're going to be in a movie, or if it's setting up an Avengers film. Well, that was a very, very interesting article. I have to say, it was carefully crafted. I think this is also some damage control, even when it comes to investors, even when it comes to Disney stock. They're trying now very carefully to word things. They don't want to just say, listen, we're in trouble, this show is garbage, we need to do something because all of our shows are underperforming, all of our movies are underperforming, and we have basically run this entire IP, the MCU, the whole franchise, we've run it into the ground. That's the truth, but somehow them and the Hollywood Reporter seem to have crafted a very pleasant and nice way to put all of this with a bunch of excuses that I don't think anybody is buying. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to my channel and also clicking on that wonderful notification bell. Thanks for watching, my friends. Thank you, and good day.
I am such an awesome guy. I make so many videos.